So we're focusing on this. Some of the saddest statistics relating to young people in South Africa pertain to unemployment. The jobless rate soars above 60% if you look at the age group between 15 and 24, and it stands at 42% for those between 25 and 34 years old. Essentially, that means at least 1 out of every 2 young people in South Africa cannot find a job. To talk more on this, we're joined by UJ Professor of Practice and our former statistician general, Dr Pali Lehohla. He now heads the Economic Modelling Academy. It was launched recently, and it will look at the challenges of poverty, inequality and unemployment, which especially afflict the future of young people in this country. At the same time, the Public Service and Commercial Union is calling on government to urgently fill thousands of vacant public sector jobs with young people. We're also joined by the union's General Secretary Tahir Maepa. Thank you both for being with me. Let me start with you, Dr. Lehohla. We used to speak about the numbers, and you said as statistician general, you only focused on the numbers. But this number, when we talk about youth unemployment, has huge ramifications in terms of poverty and just hopelessness for so many young people. And I know that it's something that you're very concerned about.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's been a concern as a person who has been looking at these numbers. But to put it more dramatically, if we look at the year 2008, we had 1 million more youth employed in the age group 25 to 34, as well as 700,000 more youth employed in the age group 15 to 24. Now from 2019, we lost that number. 1 million less youth were employed. So this is the most dramatic shift in the levels of employment. It precedes the pandemic, but has intensified during the pandemic. So the fact of youth unemployment is tragic in that 1 million less, in fact, 1.7 million less youth are employed today compared to that number in 2008. So that number of years later, we are worse off.
Yeah. And staying with you, how can economic modelling help? Because it seems like we've always understood what's happening. Education playing a huge part, and you've talked about how graduates are more likely to get a job than people without that. So there are those sort of things, and then structural unemployment, people talking about the lack of skills for the jobs that are on the market. So don't we know what's going on is my question.
Yes, indeed. I mean, with the modeling, which I'm heading now, the Economic Modelling Academy should be able to help policymakers with choices. You cannot give a policymaker only one choice. You need to look at modeling, for instance, the micro model that we have, the poverty and inequality model. When you model those based on what we know now, you can actually say, where do you effect change? And that change can only come about when we have bureaucrats that can actually use these models, and then advise policymakers accordingly. It's a long-term investment, and it will eliminate, to a large extent, the thumbsuck, back of the envelope kind of calculations that are made in terms of industrial policy and so on. So these models are things that we have to be in the hands, not only of Treasury, but across bureaucrats, across civil society, and across the private sector. The absence of that for an economy this big and as complex as this means that we'll fumble from one end to the other, and we'll depend on luck or misfortune.
Yeah. Mr. Maepa, so everybody is searching for solutions. Dr. Lehohla saying economic modelling will help. You are saying fill the jobs that are already there with young people. Tell me more.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. Look, currently in the public service, we have over the last number that I saw, over 200,000 jobs that are available, that are funded, that can be released to attract the thousands of young people who are out there who are unemployed majority of which are graduates with the necessary qualification. And the public service over the years, we all know that there's been a lot of brain drain due to the fact that majority of our professionals decided to leave the public service because of the political meddling into the administrative aspect of the public service. Those who don't want to be involved in corrupt activities chose to just exit instead of staying in a system that is not empowering them to be able to use their skills for the public service to move forward. So I'm saying, in as much as there's a lot of things that have been done, I mean, I read what Dr. Lehohla is busy with, which is an excellent thing, but it's not going to realize jobs at the immediate. It's a long-term activity that is going to require a lot of engagement and a lot of buy-in from both the state, the private sector, and social partners. However, let's start where we can. And I'm saying there are jobs that are available that they can be opened up to the youth.
It sounds like you have to make the public service attractive again, though. That's the starting point, Mr. Maepa.
Of course. Well, absolutely. Currently, the public service is not that attractive. But for somebody who's unemployed, surely the young people will take up those opportunities. And that's where we as trade unions need to come in. We need to make sure that we protect the public servants from these vultures who consistently interfere in the activities of either bureaucrats or ordinary public servants from basically fulfilling their obligation and wanting to always, instead of being policymakers and overseers, they want to get involved into the day-to-day running of the public service in the national level, the provincial level, and especially at the local levels.
Dr. Lehohla, do you want to comment on this idea and the other ideas that are out there? The YES initiative, they said they created 50,000 jobs by March 2021. The National Youth Development Agency is focusing on entrepreneurship. Or is this all just playing in the dark, like you say, until we know exactly what's going on?
Well, I think moments of desperation require desperate responses. And some of those responses are a prayer here, an activity there, and another activity there. A lot of them just inputs, and without actually understanding what the outcomes of that will be. For instance, during COVID, there were 300,000 people who were deployed into education. I mean, that was a very terrible move, whereby you actually open children that have to be the future to these people that have no clue around education, a very fragile institution. I made that point, and I do not know what has happened to that program. I'm sure it has added more confusion than resolved the problem. You could have opened those opportunities of 300,000 in an environment such as agriculture, where there are no routes to training environments. You could have taken that to public works, such as construction. That's 300,000. If you wanted to deploy those into education, you would have put them through a process of training so that they replace the current stock of teachers from now into the next 40 years. Now, absence of strategy and absence of looking at what impacts we are looking for is the problem. All the time, we are fed inputs. Certainly, the opportunities and openings in government have to be filled with speed. Those should be filled with speed. There shouldn't be any delay because this unemployment is very dire. 200,000, yes, 300,000 will not change the dial, but for those people who will get the jobs, something, and breathe hope for others.
All right, so Mr. Maepa, he likes the plan, but something else has come up there. Some of the jobs require experience, which is always the conundrum for young people. You can't always just match a job opening with a young person. Is that an issue? And then we heard from people in that insert before saying what the economy actually needs is the plumbers, artisans, things like that, and we're not really building up those skills.
Yes, but again, it goes back to those collaborative initiatives, because for us to be able to respond to the needs of the country, we need all role players to come to the fore. We need education institution also to open up those kinds of opportunities, because these kinds of trainings are specialized trainings in the main, even though a lot of people look down on artisan jobs. But artisan jobs are the jobs that propels the economy. Without those, unfortunately, the issues that Dr. Lehohla is raising, for instance, public works is labor-intensive kind of an environment that is based on construction, and it requires a lot of artisans. However, if we don't have institutions that would be able to produce those particular skills, we're going to have a problem. I mean, these initiatives like EMA and like the initiative of a person like Professor Mdwaba, the so-called parallel universe, which will assist to rekindle this economy, are going to need those particular skills. But again, you need a government that is focused, a government that has a strategy, a government that has a plan that is not only responding to crisis, but it's responsive to the needs of society and the needs of the citizens of this country.
If only we could solve this problem for the sake of millions of young people out there. Hopefully the economic modelling really helps, and I appreciate both of your time tonight. That was UJ Professor of Practice, former Stats General, Dr Pali Lehohla, and of course he's heading the Economic Modelling Academy, as well as the Public Service and Commercial Union General Secretary Tahir Maepa. Thank you very much.